Have you ever dreamed of exploring Belgium, a country where medieval squares, Gothic cathedrals, and fairy tale canals meet rolling hills and deep forests? Many travelers know Brussels, Bruges, and Antwerp, but few realize Belgium also hides Europe's oldest town. Castles perched above rivers, and even wild highlands that look more like Scandinavia than Central Europe. The good news is, you don't have to piece it all together alone. Today, we'll take you through Belgium's most fascinating places, from grand cities to hidden landscapes. Zwin Nature Park lies on Belgium's northeastern coast, where the sea once reached inland through tidal inlets. Today, the area is a mosaic of salt marshes, mudflats, and dunes, shaped by the tides. Wooden walkways and observation towers cross the wetlands, giving views over a landscape that shifts with each change of water level. The park is a sanctuary for birds. Storks nest near the entrance, while geese, ducks, and waders gather in the shallows. Migratory species use the marshes as a stop along their routes, making Zwin one of Belgium's most important ornithological sites. Wildflowers and coastal plants thrive in the sandy soil, from sea lavender to glasswort that turns red in autumn. Trails and hides bring visitors close to these habitats, where wind, water, and wildlife dominate the horizon. Ghent lies at the meeting of the Scheldt and the Lea rivers, its old center threaded with canals and stone bridges. The skyline is marked by the three towers of St. Nicholas Church, the Belfry, and St. Bavo's Cathedral. Each rises above rows of gabled houses that line the quays, their reflections shimmering in the water. In the Middle Ages, Ghent was one of Europe's great trading cities, its wealth built on cloth and grain. The castle of the Counts, with its thick walls and towers, still overlooks the center as a reminder of that era. Inside St. Bavo's Cathedral hangs the Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, the 15th century altarpiece by the Van Eyck brothers, a masterpiece of Northern Renaissance art. Ghent is also a city that never froze in its past. Industrial canals and old warehouses have been reclaimed for art pieces, cafes, and theaters. Market squares remain lively, filled with bicycles, trams, and university students. Between Gothic spires and modern life, the city carries its history into the present with unusual energy. Bruges unfolds as a network of canals, cobbled lanes, and medieval buildings that earned it the name Venice of the North. The Markt lies at its heart, a broad square dominated by the Belfry. Its 83-meter tower has watched over the city for centuries, once housing bells that rang out across Flanders. Surrounding guild halls and step-gabled houses recall the wealth Bruges gained from trade in the Middle Ages. Waterways cut through the old town, lined with brick facades, stone bridges, and hidden courtyards. Boats drift under low arches, passing churches whose spires rise above the rooftops. Among them is the Church of Our Lady, home to Michelangelo's Madonna and Child, one of his few works outside Italy. Bruges also preserves the quiet rhythm of its monastic past. The whitewashed houses of the Bagenhof stand behind walls and trees, once home to a community of laywomen who lived in devotion. Windmills still turn along the edges of the city, while horse-drawn carriages move through the narrow streets. Dinant stretches along the river Meuse, pressed between steep cliffs and the water's edge. The skyline is dominated by the Collegiate Church of Notre Dame, its dark Gothic tower crowned with a bulb-shaped spire. Above it rises the citadel, a fortress perched on the clifftop, reached by a steep stairway or cable car, commanding views across the valley. The river has always defined the town. Bridges cross the Meuse, linking narrow streets lined with cafes and houses painted in bright colors. Boats move along the water, while limestone cliffs frame the city on both sides. Dinant is also known as the birthplace of Adolphe Sax, inventor of the saxophone. Sculptures of the instrument appear throughout the town, a reminder of its musical legacy. The Ardennes forest spreads across southern Belgium, a vast region of wooded hills, valleys, and rivers. Oak, beech, and pine cover the slopes, broken by clearings where villages and farms nestle among the trees. The terrain is rugged, with ridgelines that rise steeply above winding streams and narrow valleys. The forest has long been a frontier. Castles and fortresses still crown the hills, built to guard trade routes and river crossings. Towns such as Bouillon, La Roche-en-Ardenne, and Durbuy grew from these defensive sites, their stone walls still standing amid the trees. Paths and trails connect them, winding through dense woodland and across ridges with wide views. The Ardennes is also remembered for war. During both world wars, its forests became battlefields, most famously in the Battle of the Bulge. Memorials and cemeteries are scattered among the hills, reminders of the region's turbulent past. Yet the forest remains above all a landscape of nature. Deer, wild boar, and foxes roam the woods. Rivers like the Ourthe and Semois carve deep gorges, their banks lined with moss and ferns. Brussels stands at the heart of Belgium, a city where medieval streets meet modern glass towers. The Grand Place lies at its center, a square surrounded by ornate guild halls, the town hall with its spire rising into the sky, and the elaborate Maison du Roi. Cobblestone streets lead outward, winding past Gothic churches, Art Nouveau facades, and hidden courtyards. The city is a crossroads of cultures. French and Dutch voices mix in daily life, joined by dozens of other languages, as Brussels hosts the European Union and NATO. International institutions rise in sleek buildings, yet only streets away stand cafes that have served locals for centuries. Brussels is also a city of symbols. Murals of comic book characters stretch across building walls, celebrating Belgium's tradition of graphic art. Markets fill with the smell of waffles, chocolate, and fries, while breweries continue a craft refined over generations. Kalmthoutse Heide spreads along the Belgian-Dutch border, a landscape of heathland, dunes, and forest. In late summer, the heath turns purple with blooming heather, stretching in wide carpets across the sandy soil. The reserve is crisscrossed by trails that pass through pine groves, patches of birch, and open moor. Ponds and fens dot the area, attracting waterfowl and dragonflies. The mix of wetland and dry heath creates habitats for a variety of species, from lizards basking on the sand to migratory birds crossing the lowlands. Observation points and wooden walkways give views over the flat horizon, where heath and sky meet in broad sweeps of color. Kalmthoutse Heide is one of the oldest protected nature areas in Belgium, part of the larger cross-border Grenspark. Its open landscapes stand in sharp contrast to the dense farmland and towns that surround it. Between Brussels and Antwerp lies Mechelen, a city where Gothic towers rise above quiet streets. The centerpiece is St. Rumbold's Cathedral, its unfinished tower climbing 97 meters. From its top, broad views stretch across Flanders, reaching as far as both major cities on clear days. The Grote Markt spreads below the cathedral, framed by ornate guild halls in the town hall, a blend of Gothic and Renaissance stonework. Narrow lanes branch out from the square, leading past monasteries, churches, and old breweries that recall the city's role as a religious and political hub in the 16th century. The River Dial winds through the center, crossed by arched bridges and lined with quayside cafes. Along its banks, restored warehouses and modern housing stand side by side. Gaasbeek Castle stands in the rolling countryside southwest of Brussels, surrounded by parkland and gardens. The fortress was first built in the Middle Ages, later transformed into a Renaissance residence, and finally reshaped in the 19th century into the romantic castle seen today. Red brick towers with pointed roofs rise above a moat, while stone bridges lead to the main gate. Inside, the rooms hold collections of paintings, tapestries, and historic furnishings. The interiors reflect centuries of changing styles, from medieval halls to ornate salons. Outside, formal gardens and orchards spread around the castle grounds, with long avenues and shaded paths leading into the estate's park. The castle has shifted from fortress to noble residence to museum, each layer of history leaving its mark. The Semois Valley National Park stretches through southern Wallonia, a landscape of winding rivers, deep forests, and high ridges. The Semois River carries broad loops through the Ardennes, its bends creating dramatic viewpoints where the water coils like a ribbon across the valley floor. From above, the slopes are covered in oak, beech, and pine, broken by occasional clearings and stone villages. The town of Biesen lies at the heart of the valley, overlooked by its medieval castle perched on a rocky spur above the river. From the fortress walls, the curves of the Semois spread outward in both directions, a reminder of how the river shaped settlement here. Trails and paths weave through the park, climbing from riverside meadows into dense woodlands. Wildlife thrives in the varied habitats, deer and wild boar in the forests, kingfishers and herons along the water. In autumn, the valley turns red and gold, the river reflecting the colors of the trees above. Antwerp rises along the River Scheldt, a port city that has long been one of Europe's busiest gateways. The harbor stretches for miles, its docks and cranes connecting Belgium to the world. From the waterfront, the old town climbs inward, where narrow streets open into grand squares lined with Renaissance facades. At the center stands the Cathedral of Our Lady, its soaring spire dominating the skyline. Inside are masterpieces by Rubens, whose paintings still fill Antwerp's churches and museums. The Grote Markt, framed by guild halls in the ornate city hall, reflects the city's prosperity during the 16th century, when Antwerp was among Europe's richest trading hubs. Antwerp is also a city of craft and commerce. Its diamond district handles the majority of the world's uncut stones, continuing a tradition centuries old. La Roche-en-Ardenne lies in a bend of the Orth River, surrounded by steep forested hills. The town is overlooked by the ruins of a medieval castle, its stone walls and towers still commanding the valley below. At night, spotlights cast the fortress in dramatic relief, keeping its presence alive over the rooftops. The town itself is compact, with narrow streets, stone houses, and riverside promenades. Bridges link both banks of the Orth, where cafes and shops line the quays. Trails lead directly from the center into wooded hills, making La Roche a gateway to the surrounding Ardennes landscape. During the Second World War, the town saw heavy fighting in the Battle of the Bulge, a history remembered in its museums and memorials. Alden Biesen Castle lies in Limburg, built in the 16th century as the headquarters of the Teutonic Order's land commander. The complex is large, with red brick walls, towers, and wings arranged around courtyards. Moats and gardens surround the estate, giving it the scale of a fortified palace rather than a single castle. Inside, vaulted halls, chapels, and staircases reflect the order's wealth and influence. Fires and wars damaged the site over the centuries, but restoration returned it to its former grandeur. Today it serves as a cultural center, hosting exhibitions, concerts, and festivals that bring life into the historic walls. The surrounding grounds include formal gardens, orchards, and long avenues lined with trees. Together with the castle's architecture, they preserve the atmosphere of a princely residence, a reminder of the power once held by the Teutonic Order in this corner of Europe. Ypres lies in the fields of West Flanders, a town rebuilt from the ruins of the First World War. The Cloth Hall dominates its center, a vast Gothic structure once home to the medieval cloth trade. Destroyed during the war and painstakingly reconstructed, it now houses the In Flanders Fields Museum, dedicated to the battles that surrounded the city. Near the square rises St. Martin's Cathedral, its tall spire restored after the same devastation. Streets around the center carry a mix of medieval outlines and careful reconstruction, giving Ypres the atmosphere of a city shaped both by history and by memory. At the edge of town stands the Menengate, a monumental arch inscribed with the names of thousands of soldiers who never returned. Durbuy lies in the Ardennes, a compact town of stone houses, narrow alleys, and wooded hillsides. The Orth River curves around its edge, enclosing a settlement that feels more like a village than a city. Its medieval heart remains intact. Streets paved with cobblestones, facades of gray limestone, and a castle rising above the rooftops. The old town is a maze of lanes lined with shops, cafes, and small inns. The rhythm is quiet, with church bells marking the hours and the river flowing just beyond the walls. Surrounding hills and forests make Durbuy a starting point for trails and outdoor paths through the Ardennes. Though small in scale, Durbuy preserves the atmosphere of a fortified medieval town, its stonework and setting giving it the reputation of being the smallest city in the world. The Ninglinspo Valley lies in the Ardennes near Ypres, a narrow gorge carved by a fast-flowing stream. The river runs over rocks and ledges, forming small cascades and pools with names drawn from legend. Bath of Diana, Pool of the Boars. Moss and ferns cover the stones, while beech and oak forests rise along the slopes, enclosing the valley in green. A trail follows the river for several kilometers, crossing wooden bridges and climbing over rocky paths. The sound of water is constant, echoing through the trees as the stream twists between boulders. Higher up, viewpoints open onto ridges and valleys, contrasting the shaded gorge with wide landscapes of the Ardennes. The Ninglinspo is the only mountain stream officially recognized in Belgium, a protected natural site where water and forest create one of the most atmospheric walks in the country. Namur sits where the Sambre and Meuse rivers meet, its streets spreading beneath the slopes of a vast citadel. The fortress dominates the city from a rocky hilltop, its stone walls and tunnels tracing layers of history from Roman outpost to modern stronghold. From the ramparts, wide views stretch across valleys, bridges, and church spires. Below the citadel, the old town unfolds in narrow lanes and squares. Baroque facades and elegant mansions reflect Namur's role as a provincial capital. At the heart of the city stands Saint-Auban's Cathedral, its curved dome rising above rows of shops and cafes. The rivers remain central to the city's life. Quayside promenades follow the water, while bridges link districts on either bank. South of Brussels lies the Waterloo Battlefield, where on June 18, 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte faced the Allied armies of Wellington and Blücher. The rolling fields that once echoed with cannon fire and cavalry charges now stretch as farmland, marked by memorials and monuments. At the heart of the site rises the Lion's Mound, a massive earth pyramid topped with a cast-iron lion. Built in the 1820s, it overlooks the battlefield, its summit reached by a steep stairway of 226 steps. From the top, wide views extend across the ridges and plains where the armies fought. Nearby, the panorama of Waterloo presents a 19th century circular painting of the battle, surrounding visitors with scenes of infantry squares and cavalry charges. Farmhouses that played roles in the fighting, such as Hougoumont and La Haye-Sainte, still stand along the field, preserved as museums. Freÿr Castle stands on the banks of the Meuse near Dinant, framed by limestone cliffs that rise steeply above the river. The castle began as a medieval stronghold and was later rebuilt into a Renaissance residence, its long facades of stone and brick reflected in the water below. The interior holds salons decorated with period furniture, tapestries, and portraits of the noble families who lived here. Outside, the formal gardens stretch in terraces beside the river. Neatly trimmed hedges form intricate patterns, while fountains and orange trees add symmetry and color. The layout was inspired by the Great Gardens of France, giving the site a refined atmosphere against its rugged backdrop. Leuven stands east of Brussels, a city shaped by its university, one of the oldest in Europe. Founded in the 15th century, the university still dominates the center, its library and colleges spread across courtyards and cobbled streets. The main square is framed by the town hall, a masterpiece of late Gothic architecture. Its facade bristles with statues and spires, a display of stonework so intricate it seems like lace carved into rock. The Great Béguinage lies nearby, a district of red brick houses, gardens, and quiet lanes. Once home to a religious community of women, it now belongs to the university, preserved as a living neighborhood and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Malmedy lies in a valley of the Ardennes, surrounded by forested hills and fast-flowing streams. Its center is marked by the Cathedral of Saints Peter, Paul, and Quirinus, a twin-tower church that dominates the main square. Around it spread narrow streets of stone houses, small shops, and cafes that reflect the town's role as a regional hub. The area is known for its traditions and festivals. Each winter, Malmedy hosts the Cormet, a carnival with elaborate masks and costumes that fills the streets with music and parades. Throughout the year, traces of Walloon and German influences appear in the town's culture and language, a legacy of its shifting borders. Malmedy also serves as a gateway to the High Fens, a plateau of moorland and forests nearby. Trails lead directly from the town into a landscape of wide skies, peat bogs, and windswept ridges. Thuin stands above the Sambre River, its upper town perched on a ridge, crowned by the ruins of a medieval belfry. From the hillside, steep lanes descend toward the water, passing terraced gardens built along the slopes. These hanging gardens, supported by stone walls, create a patchwork of vines, orchards, and small plots that have shaped the town's character for centuries. The lower town follows the river, with quays, bridges, and narrow streets that once served river trade. Boats on the Sambre recall Thuin's history as a center of navigation and boat building. Museums preserve this heritage, displaying barges and tools from the days when the river carried goods across Wallonia. The Fagnes de Rouge-Ponce lies within the High Fens Plateau, a stretch of raised moorland shaped by peat bogs, streams, and open heath. The landscape is flat and exposed, with wide skies and horizons that shift with the weather. Mist often hangs over the moors, while in winter, the area can be buried in snow, making it one of the coldest spots in Belgium. Wooden walkways cross the bogs, guiding visitors through fragile habitats where sundews, cotton grass, and heather thrive in the wet soil. Birds such as skylarks, harriers, and snipe nest in the open heathland, adding movement to the silence of the plateau. The Fagnes du Rouge-Ponce is part of a protected reserve, where the mix of harsh climate and rare vegetation preserves one of Belgium's most unusual natural environments. Tongeren in Limburg is known as the oldest town in Belgium, founded by the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago. Fragments of the ancient walls still stand, traces of the settlement that once guarded the empire's northern frontier. The Gallo-Roman Museum, built near these remains, displays artifacts from that era, statues, weapons, and everyday objects unearthed from the soil around the city. In the center rises the Basilica of Our Lady, its Gothic tower visible above the surrounding streets. Nearby, a statue of Ambiorix, the Eburones leader who resisted Julius Caesar, stands in the main square as a symbol of local pride. Tongeren is also famous for its antique market, one of the largest in the region. Each Sunday, stalls fill the streets with furniture, books, and curiosities, continuing a tradition of trade that has defined the town for centuries. The Hautes Fagnes, or High Fens, stretch across the eastern Ardennes, a plateau of moorland, forest, and peat bogs. At over 600 meters, it forms the highest landscape in Belgium, a windswept expanse unlike anywhere else in the country. The terrain is open and vast, with wide skies and heathlands that shift color through the seasons, purple with heather in late summer, white with snow in winter. Wooden boardwalks cross the bogs, leading visitors over spongy ground where rare plants thrive. Cotton grass, sundews, and orchids grow in the wetlands, while forests of spruce and beech surround the plateau. Wildlife includes deer, wild boar, and birds of prey that circle the ridges. The climate here is harsh. Heavy snow, mist, and storms are common, giving the area a reputation for sudden changes in weather. Yet this ruggedness is part of its character. Trails stretch toward the Baroque Mechelen and Signal de Boutrange, the highest point in Belgium, where observation towers open onto sweeping views across the moors and forests below. Charleroi lies in Wallonia, a city shaped by coal and steel. For centuries, mines and factories filled the sombre valley with smoke, earning it a reputation as the industrial heart of Belgium. Remnants of that past still rise above the landscape. Slag heaps, brick chimneys, and steel halls that once fueled the nation's growth. The center of Charleroi spreads uphill from the river, with broad boulevards and squares marked by Art Deco and modernist architecture. The town hall, topped by a tall campanile, reflects the optimism of the early 20th century. Today, many industrial sites have been transformed into cultural spaces. The Photography Museum, housed in a formal convent, holds one of Europe's largest collections. Street art covers old walls, turning former factories into open-air galleries. Ostend faces the North Sea, a city long tied to the water. Its broad beach stretches for kilometers, backed by seawalls and rows of 19th century villas. The promenade remains the heart of the city, where crowds gather in summer and storms lash the shore in winter. Fishing once drove Ostend's economy, and the harbor still bustles with trawlers and ferries. Stalls near the quays sell shrimp, herring, and North Sea specialties, a tradition carried from the docks to the tables of the city's cafes. Ostend also holds reminders of its royal past. King Leopold II transformed it into a seaside resort, building grand hotels, galleries, and the racecourse. Today, the Kursaal, a vast concert hall, continues that legacy of leisure. Hasselt stands in Limburg, a city known for both tradition and innovation. At its center lies the Grote Markt, framed by cafes, shops, and the tower of St. Quentin's Cathedral. Narrow streets radiate outward, lined with historic townhouses and modern boutiques that reflect the city's role as a regional capital. One of Hasselt's most distinctive landmarks is the Japanese Garden, the largest of its kind in Europe. Pavilions, ponds, and cherry blossoms transform a corner of the city into a landscape of bridges and quiet paths. Nearby, the Geneva Museum recalls Hasselt's long history of distilling grain spirits, a craft that gave the city its reputation as Belgium's Geneva capital. Bois-du-Luc, near La Louvière, is one of Europe's best preserved coal mining sites. The complex was founded in the late 17th century and expanded during the Industrial Revolution, operating until 1973. Its red brick buildings, workshops, and pitheads remain intact, forming a complete industrial village. Around the mine stand rows of workers' houses, schools, a hospital, and a church, all built by the mining company. The layout reflects the self-contained world of the miners, where daily life, work, and community were closely tied to the pits. Walking through the streets today reveals the structure of an entire working settlement preserved in place. The site is part of the UNESCO-listed major mining sites of Wallonia. Knokke-Heist stretches along Belgium's northeastern coast, where sandy beaches meet the dunes of the Zwin Nature Park. The shoreline runs for kilometers, lined with seawalls, promenades, and modern apartment blocks that overlook the North Sea. In summer, the wide beaches fill with umbrellas, sailboats, and walkers following the water's edge. The town is also known for its art and galleries. Sculptures and installations appear along the seafront, while local galleries host both Belgian and international artists. Exclusive shops and restaurants cluster near the beach, giving Knokke-Heist a reputation as one of the country's most upscale resorts. To the east, the Zwin Nature Park protects tidal flats and salt marshes, home to migratory birds and rare coastal plants. Wooden walkways and observation towers bring visitors into a landscape that shifts with the tide, a quieter contrast to the busy beaches nearby. The lake and Dam of Gileppe lie in the hills of eastern Belgium, near the Hautes Fagnes. Built in the 19th century, the dam was one of Europe's first large-scale engineering projects of its kind. At its base stands a monumental stone lion, 13 meters high, carved to symbolize strength and protection. The reservoir stretches into wooded valleys, its waters bordered by dense forest. Trails and roads circle the lake, offering wide views across the hills. An observation tower rises above the dam, with a panoramic platform and restaurant overlooking the reservoir and surrounding landscape. Originally built to supply water to Verviers' textile industry, the dam now serves recreation as well as utility. Newport lies where the Yser River meets the North Sea, a coastal town shaped by both harbor and beach. The marina is one of the largest in Northern Europe, with hundreds of boats moored along its quays. Nearby, the fish market and seafood restaurants reflect a long tradition of fishing that still ties the town to the water. The Grootmarkt forms the historic center, lined with guild halls and the late Gothic town hall. From the square, narrow streets lead toward the river and the locks that control the waterways around the city. These sluices played a crucial role in the First World War, when flooding the fields helped halt advancing armies. On the seafront, a wide beach stretches beside a promenade of cafes and apartments. In the Ardennes, near Spa and Stavelot, lies the Spa-Francorchamps Circuit, one of the world's most renowned motor racing tracks. Its layout winds through forested hills, climbing and descending with the natural terrain. Long straights, fast curves, and sudden changes in elevation give the circuit its reputation as both beautiful and challenging. The most famous section is Eau Rouge en Ridillon, a steep uphill sweep taken at high speed, a corner that has become iconic in motorsport. Drivers face sharp weather contrasts here. Sunshine in one section, rain just a few kilometers away. The unpredictable climate of the Ardennes often shapes the outcome of races. First used in the 1920s, the circuit has hosted the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix for decades, along with endurance races such as the 24 Hours of Spa. Grandstands and natural viewing points overlook the track, where crowds gather each summer. The Atomium rises on the edge of Brussels, a structure built for the 1958 World's Fair. Designed by engineer André Waterkeen, it represents an iron crystal magnified 165 billion times. Nine stainless steel spheres, each 18 meters in diameter, are linked by tubes that stretch across the sky, giving the building its futuristic silhouette. Inside, escalators and stairways connect the spheres, many of which house exhibitions, event spaces, and observation decks. From the top sphere, wide views extend across Brussels, the city spread out beneath the reflective steel. At night, hundreds of lights illuminate the structure, turning it into a glowing landmark visible from miles away. The Atomium was meant to be temporary, but its unusual design and symbolic value ensured its survival. Restored in the early 2000s, it remains a national icon, both a monument of post-war optimism and one of Belgium's most recognizable modern structures. Hamoir lies on the banks of the Ourthe, surrounded by wooded hills and limestone cliffs. The river curves gently through the valley, with bridges linking both sides of the town. Stone houses with slate roofs line the quays, while narrow streets climb toward the slopes beyond. The landscape defines Hamoir's character. Trails follow the Ourthe upstream and into the forests, passing caves, viewpoints, and rocky outcrops, typical of the Ardennes. Canoeing and kayaking are common on the river, where calm stretches alternate with faster currents. In the center stands a small square with cafes and shops that serve as the heart of the town. Church towers rise above the rooftops, their bells carrying across the valley. Scherpenheuvel in Flemish Brabant is Belgium's most important pilgrimage site. At its center stands the Basilica of Our Lady, a Baroque church completed in the early 17th century. Its dome rises above the town, surrounded by 7 star-shaped streets that radiate outward, forming a symbolic pattern visible from above. The basilica holds a venerated statue of the Virgin Mary, drawing pilgrims for centuries. Its interior is richly decorated with marble, gilded altars, and paintings that reflect the Counter-Reformation spirit in which it was built. Beyond its religious role, Scherpenheuvel carries the rhythm of a small Flemish town. Market stalls, cafes, and shops line the streets, leading to the basilica, mixing daily life with a constant presence of pilgrimage. Belgium is charming, layered, and full of surprises. Where fairy-tale towns glow with cobblestone streets, Gothic spires rise above bustling squares, and centuries of history meet world-famous chocolate, waffles, and art. If this glimpse sparked your curiosity, hit subscribe. There are many more countries to explore right here on the channel.